The cemetery was always empty at 6 a.m. until the day billionaire widow Claudia Whitmore discovered her dead son wasn't really gone. Have you ever seen a ghost walk among the living? Have you ever lost someone so precious that seeing their face again would stop your heart? Claudia was about to discover that death doesn't always mean goodbye. What she overheard next would shatter everything she thought she knew about her son. The morning mist clung to the headstones like old secrets refusing to let go. Claudia walked the familiar path to Marcus's grave, her designer heels clicking against the wet concrete. 2 years of this routine. 2 years of bringing fresh white roses to the boy who would never come home. But today felt different. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Standing beside his grave was her new black nanny, Laura, holding a little boy who looked exactly like him. Same curls, same birthmark, same face she'd kissed goodnight 2 years ago. Claudia's breath caught in her throat. She ducked behind a large monument, her heart hammering against her ribs. The boy couldn't be more than 3 years old. The math made her stomach turn. "Your daddy was a good man," Laura whispered, kissing the boy's forehead. "He died to protect you." "Daddy?" The word hit Claudia like a physical blow. Her son had no child. She would have known. She would have been told. Unless... The boy reached tiny fingers toward the headstone, tracing the letters of Marcus's name. "When will Daddy come home, Mama?" Laura's voice broke. "He's already here, baby. He's watching over us." Claudia pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting back a sob. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. Her son was gone. Dead, drowned in the lake behind their estate after drinking too much at a family gathering. But the child's face, those eyes, that exact same dimple when he smiled. "Mama, why do you cry when we visit Daddy?" the boy asked. "Because I miss him," Laura replied, wiping tears from her cheeks. "But seeing how much you look like him makes my heart happy too." The boy giggled, a sound so familiar it made Claudia's knees weak. It was Marcus's laugh. The same laugh that had filled their house for 25 years. Laura stood, brushing dirt from her jeans. As she turned to leave, her purse slipped from her shoulder, contents scattering across the ground. Photos, receipts, a small recorder, and something that made Claudia's blood freeze. A picture of Marcus holding the same little boy. Drop a comment if you've ever discovered a family secret that changed everything. This story is just beginning. And trust me, you won't see what's coming next. But first, Claudia had to get that photograph. Claudia waited until Laura and the boy disappeared around the corner before rushing to the scattered items. Her hands shook as she reached for the photograph lying face down on the wet grass. She turned it over and gasped. There was Marcus, younger, happier than she'd seen him in years. His arms wrapped around Laura, both of them laughing. Between them sat the little boy, probably around 1 year old, reaching for Marcus's face with chubby fingers. On the back, in Marcus's handwriting, "My beautiful family, A, and little James. One day we'll be together forever." James. The boy had a name. Her grandson had a name. Claudia's mind raced back 3 years. She remembered hiring Laura as their nanny for Marcus's cousin's children during holiday visits. The young woman had been quiet, efficient, beautiful. Marcus had seemed interested, but Claudia had dismissed it as harmless flirtation. How wrong she'd been. She studied the photograph again. Marcus looked genuinely happy. Not the forced smile he'd worn at family dinners or charity events. This was real joy. The kind of joy she thought he'd lost forever after his father's death. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Claudia spun around. A security guard approached, concern creasing his weathered face. "I'm fine," she managed, quickly stuffing the photograph into her coat pocket. "Just visiting my son." The guard nodded respectfully. "I'm sorry for your loss. I remember when the young Mr. Whitmore used to come here with that lady and the little boy. Sweet kid, looks just like his daddy." Claudia's heart stopped. "They came here, together?" "Oh yes, ma'am. Every few weeks for the past 2 years. The boy always brings drawings for his daddy. Real touching, if you ask me." The world tilted. Everyone knew. Everyone except her. "Thank you," Claudia whispered, walking away on unsteady legs. She made it to her car before the tears came. Deep, ugly sobs that shook her entire body. How had she not known? How had her own son hidden an entire life from her? But even as she cried, anger began to build. If this child was Marcus's son, why had she been kept in the dark? Why hadn't Laura told her when she'd hired her as a nanny just last month? The pieces clicked into place. Laura hadn't taken the job by coincidence. She'd sought out the Whitmore family. But why now? What did she want? Claudia pulled out her phone, dialing her private investigator. Then she stopped. First, she needed to confront Laura directly. She needed to look into those eyes and hear the truth. But as she drove home, one question burned in her mind. If Marcus had a son, why had he never told her? What had her family done to drive him to such secrecy? The answer would change everything. Claudia waited by the front gate of her estate, watching for Laura's return. The mansion loomed behind her, its windows like cold eyes judging her every move. She'd built this life, this empire, but somehow missed the most important thing in her son's world. At 3 p.m., Laura's old Honda pulled into the circular driveway. Little James bounced in his car seat, pointing excitedly at the massive oak trees. "Mama, look! Big trees like in my picture book." Laura's smile faded when she saw Claudia standing there. She knew. Somehow she knew. "Mrs. Whitmore," Laura said carefully, lifting James from the car. "I wasn't expecting you to be home. I'm sure you weren't." Claudia's voice was steadier than she felt. "We need to talk." James ran toward the fountain, his small legs carrying him in circles around the base. His laughter echoed off the stone walls, so much like Marcus it made Claudia's chest ache. "About what?" Laura asked, but her eyes had already gone defensive. Claudia pulled out the photograph. "About this." Laura's face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "You dropped it. At the cemetery. We were visiting my son's grave with his child." For a moment, neither woman spoke. James continued playing, oblivious to the tension crackling between them. "He's beautiful," Claudia said finally. "He looks exactly like Marcus did at that age." Laura's chin lifted. "Yes, he does." "Is he my son's child?" "Yes." The simple word hit harder than any long explanation could have. Claudia felt her legs go weak, but she forced herself to stay upright. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out as a whisper. Laura's laugh was bitter. "Tell you? Mrs. Whitmore, your family destroyed my life. You think I'd trust you with my sons?" "What are you talking about?" "Grandma Claudia." James came running over, his arms outstretched. "Daddy said you have pretty flowers in your garden." Claudia's heart stopped. He knows who I am." Marcus used to show him pictures, Laura said quietly. He wanted James to know his grandmother, even if what? Laura picked up James, holding him protectively. Even if his grandmother's family made sure his parents could never be together. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Claudia felt pieces of a puzzle she didn't know existed starting to form a horrible picture. "I don't understand. Ask your father," Laura said, walking toward the house. "Ask him about the night he had me arrested for stealing your mother's jewelry. Ask him about the lies he told to make sure I'd never see Marcus again." Claudia's blood turned to ice. "You're lying." "Am I?" Laura turned back, her eyes blazing. "Then explain why your son died, driving to our apartment the night he was supposed to take us away from this place forever." Laura set James down in the kitchen, handing him a juice box before turning to face Claudia. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting shadows that seemed to dance between them. "You want the truth?" Laura's voice was steady now, resolved. "Fine, but don't expect it to be pretty." Claudia sat heavily in one of the breakfast chairs, her designer suit suddenly feeling like armor that couldn't protect her from what was coming. "It started 3 years ago," Laura began. "I was working for your sister's family, taking care of her twins during the holidays. Marcus was different from what I expected." "Different how?" "Kind. Real. He didn't look at me like the help." Laura's eyes softened at the memory. "He'd sit with me in the kitchen after everyone went to bed. We'd talk about books, music, dreams. He was so lonely, Mrs. Whitmore. So tired of being what everyone expected him to be." Claudia's throat tightened. She'd always pushed Marcus to be perfect, to carry on the family legacy. Had she pushed him away in the process? We fell in love, Laura continued. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies. It was quiet, comfortable, like we'd been waiting our whole lives to find each other. But you were the nanny. I was a woman. He was a man. Love doesn't care about bank accounts or job titles. Laura's voice hardened. Though your family certainly did. What happened? We kept it secret for months. Marcus wanted to tell you, but I was scared. I'd heard enough whispered conversations to know how this family feels about people who look like me. Claudia winced. She couldn't deny it. When I got pregnant, everything changed. Marcus was over the moon. He started making plans, real plans. He was going to tell the family, claim his trust fund, and we'd start fresh somewhere else. But you never told us, because your father found out first. Laura's hands clenched into fists. He had me followed, took pictures, built a case against me like I was some kind of criminal. A case. He planted your mother's emerald bracelet in my purse, called the police, had me arrested in front of Marcus and the entire staff. Tears started falling down Laura's face. Do you know what it feels like to have the man you love watch you get handcuffed for something you didn't do? Claudia's stomach churned. Her father was capable of many things, but this, Marcus believed you at first. But when the security footage mysteriously disappeared and witnesses changed their stories, he began to doubt. Your father made sure of that. Have you ever loved someone your family disapproved of? Share your story below, because what Laura tells us next will prove that some families will destroy anything to protect their secrets. The night I was fired, Laura whispered, I was 3 months pregnant with James. And Marcus was planning to propose. Laura walked to the window, staring out at the gardens where she'd once imagined playing with her child. Your father called me into his study that night. Said he had something to discuss. Claudia's hands gripped the table. She knew that study. Dark wood, heavy curtains, the smell of cigars, and old money. Her father's domain, where he'd made deals and destroyed lives with equal ease. He offered me money first, Laura continued. $50,000 to disappear, to never contact Marcus again. When I refused, his face changed, got cold, calculating. What did he say? He said Marcus was weak, that he'd always been weak, that the family had invested too much in him to let some gold-digging girl destroy their legacy. Laura's voice shook with remembered anger. He said I was nothing, that I'd always be nothing, and that if I didn't leave quietly, he'd make sure I never worked again. Claudia felt sick. This sounded exactly like her father. Ruthless, efficient, cruel. I told him I was pregnant. I thought maybe knowing about his great-grandson would change things. Laura laughed bitterly. Instead, it made him angrier. He said no bastard would ever inherit Whitmore money. Oh God. The next morning, I was getting ready for work when the police came. They found your mother's bracelet in my purse. I'd never seen it before in my life, but there it was. Laura turned from the window, her eyes blazing. Your father stood there watching them handcuff me. He actually smiled. Claudia's mind raced. Her mother's emerald bracelet had gone missing around that time. She'd assumed it was lost during their move to the new safe. Marcus tried to defend me. He screamed at the police, at your father, at anyone who would listen. But the evidence was there. The bracelet, the witness statements from other staff members who suddenly remembered seeing me in places I'd never been. Witness statements. Your father bought them. Every single one. Laura's voice dropped to a whisper. The head housekeeper later told me she was given a choice. Lie about what she saw, or lose her job and her pension. She had grandchildren to think about. Claudia felt the world shifting beneath her feet. Her father hadn't just fired a nanny. He'd orchestrated a complete character assassination. The charges were dropped eventually. Not enough evidence, they said. But by then, it didn't matter. I was blacklisted. No family would hire me. No agency would represent me. Laura's tears started again. I was 5 months pregnant and homeless. Where did you go? I had a cousin in Atlanta. She took me in, helped me get a job at a diner. I cleaned tables until the day James was born. And Marcus? He found me 3 months later, drove 8 hours to apologize, to tell me he knew I'd been framed, to promise he'd make it right. Claudia's heart stopped. He knew. He'd been gathering evidence, building a case against your father. He said he was going to expose everything and claim his inheritance so we could start over. Laura's voice cracked. That was the night he died. Claudia's hands trembled as she reached for Laura's arm. Tell me everything. About that night. About my son. Laura pulled away, but her voice softened. After James was born, I thought I'd never see Marcus again. I was working double shifts at the diner, barely making rent. Then one day, he just showed up at the diner, right in the middle of a lunch rush. He looked terrible, thin, tired, like he hadn't slept in months. He sat in my section and ordered coffee. When I brought it over, he handed me an envelope. Claudia's throat tightened. What was in it? $5,000. Cash. And a note that said, for our son. More coming soon. Laura's eyes filled with tears. I tried to give it back, but he wouldn't let me. He said it was his responsibility. His joy. He saw James every few weeks. He'd drive down after work, sometimes arriving past midnight. He'd sit on my tiny couch, holding James, reading him stories. He was so gentle, Mrs. Whitmore. So patient. Laura smiled through her tears. James's first word was Dada. The words hit Claudia like a physical blow. Her son had been a father, a real father, and she'd missed all of it. Marcus was planning to rent us a house closer to home. Said he was tired of driving 4 hours just to get 2 hours with his son. Laura's voice grew stronger. He'd saved almost $100,000 from his trust fund, had lawyers reviewing contracts. He was going to start his own business, away from your family's influence. What kind of business? Something with kids. He wanted to open learning centers for children whose parents worked multiple jobs. Said he understood what it meant to grow up without enough time with the people who loved you. Claudia's chest ached. Marcus had always been sensitive about her long hours at the company. She thought he was being dramatic. He brought James presents every visit. Toys, books, clothes. But more than that, he brought hope. Laura's voice dropped to a whisper. He made me believe we could actually be a family. What changed? Your father started calling. At first, Marcus ignored him. But then the calls got more frequent, more threatening. He said the family was watching, that they knew about his visits. Watching how? Private investigators. They had photos of Marcus at my apartment, at the park with James, at the grocery store buying diapers. Laura's anger flared. Your father turned it into some kind of game. Said he was protecting the family name. That's when Marcus decided to leave? No, that's when he decided to fight back. Laura's eyes blazed. He said he was done being afraid. Done letting your father control his life. He was going to expose everything. The frame-up, the bribes, the lies. The night he died, he called me around 9 p.m. Said he had the evidence he needed. That we should pack our things because by morning, we'd be free to start over anywhere we wanted. Claudia felt cold dread settling in her stomach. What evidence? Recordings. Documents. Proof that your father had me framed. Laura's voice broke. He was so excited, Mrs. Whitmore. So happy. He said James deserved to know his family, and he was going to make sure that happened. But he never made it to you. No, he never made it to us. Laura reached into her purse, pulling out a small digital recorder. Her hand shook as she held it. After the funeral, I went to clean out Marcus's apartment. The landlord was going to throw everything away. She stared at the device like it might bite her. I found this hidden in a book. The same book he used to read to James. Claudia's pulse quickened. What's on it? His insurance policy. Everything he wanted to tell you, but never got the chance. Laura's finger hovered over the play button. Are you sure you want to hear this? No. Claudia wasn't sure of anything anymore, but she had to know. Play it. The recording crackled to life. Marcus's voice filled the kitchen, so clear and alive it made Claudia gasp. Mom, if you're hearing this, then something's happened to me. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm just being paranoid. But if grandfather has done what I think he's capable of, then you need to know the truth. Claudia's legs gave out. She slumped against the counter, tears streaming down her face. I have a son, Mom. His name is James, and he's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He laughs like he used to when I was little. He's got your eyes and Dad's stubborn chin. You'd love him. The recording paused, static filling the silence. I know you're probably angry that I kept this from you, but I was scared. Scared of what the family would do to Laura. Scared of what grandfather would do to my son. Marcus's voice grew stronger. I've spent my whole life trying trying to be the perfect Whitmore heir. But perfect isn't real, Mom. Perfect is just afraid. Claudia sobbed openly now, her heart breaking for the son she'd failed to truly know. Laura didn't steal anything. Grandfather framed her because he couldn't stand the idea of our family mixing with hers. He paid people to lie. He planted evidence. He destroyed an innocent woman's life just to control mine. The recording continued, Marcus's voice growing more urgent. I have proof now. Bank records showing payments to witnesses. Security footage from the jewelry store where grandfather bought a replacement bracelet. Phone records of him coordinating the whole thing. Claudia's blood turned to ice. Her father hadn't just been cruel. He'd been criminal. I'm going to expose everything tomorrow. The lawyers, the media, whoever will listen. James deserves to know his family, and Laura deserves justice. The recording went quiet for a moment. Then Marcus's voice returned, softer now. Mom, I love you. I know you'll love James too, once you meet him. He's got your heart. He cares about everyone and everything. He's going to change the world. Static filled the air. Then suddenly, the sound of phone ringing. That's her, Marcus said. I have to go get them now. What came next would haunt Claudia forever. What would you do if you discovered your family had blood on their hands? Comment below, because what happens next will prove that some secrets are worth killing for. Car door slamming. Footsteps on gravel. Then Marcus's voice, sharp with fear. What are you doing here? The recording continued. Marcus's voice growing more distant, as if he'd put the phone down but left it on. I told you to stay away from her. An older man's voice, cold and authoritative. Claudia recognized it immediately. Her father. Grandfather, you need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere until you come to your senses. Her father's voice was calm, controlled. The same tone he used in boardroom negotiations. Get in the car, Marcus. We're going home. I'm not a child anymore. I'm taking my family and leaving. Tonight. Your family. Her father laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. That woman is not your family. That bastard child is not your family. We are your family. Claudia's heart pounded as she listened to the confrontation between her son and her father. She could hear Marcus's breathing, quick and shallow. James is your great-grandson. He's blood just like me. He's a mistake, and mistakes can be corrected. The threat in her father's voice made Claudia's stomach turn. She looked at James, playing quietly in the corner, and felt sick. You're not taking him anywhere, Marcus said, his voice stronger now. I have evidence of what you did to Laura. I have recordings of your phone calls, copies of the payments you made. It's over, grandfather. Your lies are done. Evidence can disappear, boy, just like people can. Are you threatening me? I'm saving this family. Something you're too weak to understand. The sound of car doors slamming again. More voices, men Claudia didn't recognize. Who are these people? Marcus demanded. Insurance. In case you continue to be unreasonable. You're insane. Mom will never forgive you for this. Your mother will thank me when she realizes what I've protected her from. A scandal like this would destroy everything we've built. The recording grew muffled, as if there was a struggle. Claudia heard Marcus shouting, then the sound of an engine starting. Don't follow us, boy. Go home. Forget about the woman and the child. There are plenty of suitable girls from good families. I'll never forget them. I'll never give up. Then you'll force my hand. The recording went silent except for the sound of cars driving away in different directions. Then, after several minutes, Marcus's voice returned, shaky and desperate. Mom, if something happens to me, protect them. James didn't ask for this. Laura didn't ask for this. But I asked for it when I fell in love with her. Please don't let grandfather hurt them. The line went dead. Claudia stared at the recorder, her world completely shattered. Her father hadn't just framed Laura. He'd threatened Marcus. And that same night, her son had died. Laura's voice broke the silence. He was coming to get us when he crashed. The police said he was driving too fast, lost control on the curb by the lake. But you don't believe that. I know it wasn't an accident. And now that you've heard the recording, you know it too. Outside, expensive cars were pulling into the driveway. The family lawyers had arrived. Through the kitchen window, Claudia watched 3 black sedans pull up to the house. Men in dark suits emerged, briefcases in hand. Her father's damage control team. How did they know? Claudia whispered. Your father's had people watching me since I took this job, Laura said, quickly tucking the recorder back in her purse. He probably knows about our conversation already. The front door opened without a knock. Heavy footsteps echoed through the marble foyer. Claudia's father appeared in the kitchen doorway, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expensive suit immaculate. Behind him stood 3 lawyers and a man she didn't recognize. Claudia, her father's voice was warm, concerned. The same voice that had just threatened her son on the recording. I came as soon as I heard. Heard what? Claudia's voice was ice. That this woman has been filling your head with lies about Marcus. His eyes shifted to Laura, cold and calculating. Miss Johnson, I believe we've met. Laura lifted her chin. It's Miss Williams now. I got married. Congratulations. I trust your husband knows about your history with his family. He knows the truth. All of it. The unnamed man stepped forward. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Detective Bradley. We understand there may be some confusion about your son's death and certain claims being made about your family. Claudia's heart pounded. What kind of claims? Accusations of evidence tampering, witness intimidation, possible involvement in your son's accident. Detective Bradley's voice was professional, but his eyes were sympathetic. We'd like to ask Miss Williams a few questions. I'm not answering anything without my lawyer, Laura said. That's your right. But we should mention that making false accusations against a prominent family can result in serious legal consequences. Claudia felt the room closing in. Her father was already working to silence Laura, just like he had 3 years ago. I want to hear what she has to say, Claudia said loudly. Her father's mask slipped for just a moment. Claudia, you're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. This woman is obviously trying to exploit your loss. By bringing my grandson to visit his father's grave? Grandson, her father's voice was sharp. Has she shown you any proof of this claim? Claudia pulled out the photograph she'd taken from the cemetery. This is proof enough. The lawyers huddled, whispering urgently. Detective Bradley studied the photo, his expression unreadable. Photos can be doctored, one of the lawyers said. We'll need DNA testing before any claims can be substantiated. Fine, Laura said. Test him, but I want an independent lab, not one of your family's friends. Of course, her father said smoothly. We want the truth as much as you do. But Claudia saw the look in his eyes. He wasn't interested in truth. He was interested in control. And looking at little James, innocent and unaware of the war being fought over him, she realized her father would stop at nothing to protect the family name, even if it meant destroying another life. There's something else, Laura said quietly. Something you need to know about the night Marcus died. The lawyers exchanged glances. Detective Bradley leaned forward. He wasn't alone in the car. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and James's quiet humming as he played. Claudia felt like she was drowning in the thick tension. What do you mean he wasn't alone? Detective Bradley asked. Laura's hands shook as she reached for James, pulling him closer. Marcus called me from the road. Said someone was following him. He was scared, but he was still coming to get us. Following him how? Claudia's voice was barely a whisper. 2 cars. Black sedans. They'd been behind him since he left the estate. Laura's eyes met Claudia's father across the room. He recognized one of the drivers. The old man's face remained perfectly calm. Marcus was drinking that night. He was paranoid, seeing things that weren't there. He wasn't drinking, Laura shot back. He stopped drinking the day James was born. Said he wanted to be the father he never had. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Claudia remembered Marcus's distant relationship with his own father, how he'd always seemed to be searching for approval that never came. Miss Williams, Detective Bradley said carefully, are you suggesting that someone deliberately caused your son's accident? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what happened. One of the lawyers stepped forward. Before we continue this conversation, we need to establish paternity. Mr. Whitmore, I recommend we schedule DNA testing immediately. Absolutely, her father agreed. Once we prove this child has no connection to our family, we can address the defamation issues. And if the test proves James is Marcus's son?" Claudia asked. The lawyers exchanged looks. "Then we'll discuss custody arrangements and appropriate financial support." "Custody?" Laura's voice rose. "You're not taking my son anywhere. If he's a Whitmore heir, he belongs with the Whitmore family," her father said smoothly. "Surely you understand that a child of his potential deserves the best education, the best opportunities. He deserves his mother. He deserves a stable home with people who can provide for him properly." Claudia watched the verbal chess match, her heart breaking for the little boy who had no idea his entire future was being decided by strangers in expensive suits. "I'll pay for independent testing," she said suddenly. "And I want the results sent to my personal attorney, not the family lawyers." Her father's eyes flashed. "Claudia, you're not thinking rationally. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years." She turned to Detective Bradley. "I want to know everything about my son's death. Every detail, every witness, every piece of evidence." Mrs. Whitmore, the case was closed. It was ruled an accident, then reopen it. The room erupted in voices. Lawyers objecting, her father demanding she reconsider, Detective Bradley trying to maintain order. But through it all, Claudia heard something else. James, singing softly to himself. The same lullaby Marcus used to sing when he was little. "Mommy," James said, tugging on Laura's sleeve. "Why is everyone yelling?" "Because sometimes adults forget how to use their inside voices," Laura said, lifting him into her arms. "Like Daddy did on the phone." Everyone stopped talking. Claudia's blood turned to ice. "What phone call, sweetheart?" she asked gently. "The one that made him cry." The DNA test results lay on a mahogany table like a death sentence. Claudia stared at the official letterhead, the numbers, the conclusion that changed everything. James Marcus Thompson was 99.7% genetically related to Marcus Whitmore Jr. Her grandson, her blood, her family's dirty secret made real. "Well," her father's voice came from his hospital bed, weaker now, but still sharp with authority. "Are you satisfied?" Claudia looked at the man who'd raised her, who taught her everything about business and power. The man who destroyed her son's happiness. "He's Marcus's child," she said simply. "I know." Her father's admission hung in the air like smoke. "I've known for 3 years." "You knew and said nothing?" "I said nothing because there was nothing to say. That woman was never going to be part of this family. Neither was her child." Claudia's hands shook with rage. "That child is your great-grandson. That child is living proof of Marcus's weakness. His inability to think beyond his own selfish desires." Her father's eyes hardened. "Just like you're showing right now. Caring about my grandson is weakness? Caring about the wrong things has always been your problem, Claudia. And it was Marcus's problem too." The heart monitor beeped faster as her father's agitation grew. His nurse hovered nearby, ready to intervene. "Tell me about the night he died," Claudia demanded. "What's to tell? He was drunk. He drove too fast. He crashed. Stop lying to me." Her father's laugh turned into a cough. "You want the truth? Fine. Marcus came here that night, stood right where you're standing, and told me he was taking his trust fund and running away with that woman and her bastard child. What did you do?" "I told him what I'm telling you now. Family comes first. Always. The Whitmore name means something, and I wasn't going to let him destroy 3 generations of work for some piece of ghetto trash." Claudia slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the hospital room. "That's enough," the nurse said, stepping forward. "No," Claudia's father rasped, waving her away. "Let her hear it all. Let her understand the price of protecting this family." "What price?" "Marcus threatened to go to the police, to expose everything I'd done to get rid of that woman. He said he had evidence that would destroy me." Her father's voice dropped to a whisper. "So I made a call." Claudia's blood turned to ice. "What kind of call?" "The kind that ensures problems go away permanently." The room went silent, except for the mechanical beeping of machines, keeping her father alive. Claudia felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "You had him killed. I had him stopped. There's a difference." "There's no difference." Claudia screamed. "You murder my son. I saved this family from scandal, from shame, from the destruction Marcus was determined to bring down on all of us. Her father's eyes closed. And I'd do it again. Claudia stumbled from the hospital room, her father's confession ringing in her ears. She'd always known he was ruthless, but this was beyond anything she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I saw what happened to your son. Meet me at the lake house. Come alone. Claudia's hand shook as she typed back. Who is this? Someone who's been carrying this secret for 2 years. Someone who's tired of staying quiet. The lake house, set empty most of the year, used only for family gatherings and Marcus's occasional weekend retreats. Claudia parked beside the old dock where her son had learned to swim, where he'd brought girlfriends as a teenager, where he died on a rainy Tuesday night. An elderly black man emerged from the shadows of the boathouse. She recognized him. Jimmy Carter, the caretaker who'd worked the property for 30 years. Mrs. Whitmore, he said quietly, I was wondering when you'd come. You saw what happened to Marcus? Jimmy nodded, his weathered face heavy with guilt. I was checking the boats that night. Heard arguing down by the water. Saw your son's car pull up around midnight. He was alone, at first, but then another car came. Black sedan. 2 men got out. Claudia's stomach churned. What did they do? They talked to him. Friendly like at first. Then things got heated. Your son was yelling about his family, about some woman and a baby. Said he wasn't going to let anyone hurt them. And then, Jimmy's voice broke. They grabbed him, forced him toward the water. He fought them, Mrs. Whitmore. Fought hard, but they were bigger, stronger. Oh God, they held him under until he stopped moving. Then they put him back in his car and pushed it into the lake. Jimmy wiped tears from his eyes, made it look like he'd driven in himself. Claudia felt her knees give out. She collapsed onto the dock, sobbing. Why didn't you tell anyone? She managed. Because I was scared. Because I got a visit the next morning from those same men. They told me I didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing. Said if I talked, my granddaughter might have an accident on her way to school. But you're telling me now. Because I'm dying, Mrs. Whitmore. Cancer. Got maybe 3 months left. Jimmy sat beside her on the dock. And because I heard about that little boy, Marcus' son, he deserves to know his daddy died, trying to protect him. Claudia stared at the water where her son had taken his last breath. Can you prove it? Jimmy reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. Security camera from the boathouse. I saved the footage before your father's people could destroy it. You have video? Everything. The whole thing. Jimmy's eyes met hers. Question is, what are you going to do with it? Back at the mansion, Claudia sat in Marcus's old room with Laura and Jimmy. The caretaker's ancient laptop displayed the frozen image of that terrible night. Her son's car headlights cutting through the darkness. Are you sure you want to see this? Jimmy asked gently. Claudia nodded, though every instinct screamed to her to run. Laura held James on her lap, the little boy napping peacefully, unaware that his father's final moments were about to be revealed. Jimmy pressed play. The video was grainy, black and white, but clear enough. Marcus's BMW pulled up to the lake house at 12:17 a.m. He got out, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing frantically. He's calling someone, Laura whispered. Probably you, Claudia said softly, to tell you he was coming. On screen, Marcus paced by the water's edge. Then headlights appeared, a black sedan, just like Jimmy had described. 2 large men in dark suits emerged. Those are your father's men, Jimmy said. I'd seen them before. They came to the estate sometimes for meetings. The conversation started calmly. Marcus showed them something on his phone, photos, documents maybe. But within minutes, voices were raised. Marcus backed toward the water, hands up defensively. Please, Laura breathed. I can't watch this. But she didn't look away. None of them did. The attack happened fast. One man grabbed Marcus from behind while the other struck him in the stomach. Marcus doubled over, gasping. They dragged him toward the water's edge. Stop it. Claudia screamed at the screen, as if she could somehow change what had already happened. Marcus fought back, breaking free momentarily. He ran toward his car, probably going for a weapon or to escape. But they caught him before he reached the door. What happened next made Claudia vomit. The men forced Marcus into the shallow water, holding him down as he thrashed and struggled. The timestamp showed it lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When Marcus stopped moving, they pulled his body out and arranged him behind the steering wheel of his car. Then they pushed the BMW into deeper water, where it sank slowly beneath the surface. They waited, Jimmy said quietly. Waited 20 minutes to make sure he was really gone before they called it in as an accident. Claudia was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I need to hear his voice. I need to know what he was saying. Laura reached into her purse and pulled out the small recording device from the cemetery. He called me that night, left a message when I didn't answer. She pressed play, and Marcus's voice filled the room. Laura, baby, I'm at the lake house. Dad's men are here, but I'm not backing down. I have everything, photos, bank records, witness statements. Enough to destroy him and clear your name. If something happens to me, take this to the police. Tell James to first love him. Tell him his daddy fought for him until the end. The message ended with sounds of shouting, then silence. Subscribe to see how justice finally prevails, because what happens next will restore your faith in the power of truth. The FBI agents arrived at dawn, led by Agent Martinez, a woman with kind eyes and a steel backbone. Claudia had called them herself, turning over Jimmy's video and Laura's recording. Mrs. Whitmore, Agent Martinez said, studying the evidence, this is going to destroy your family's reputation. Are you prepared for that? My family's reputation was built on lies, Claudia replied. It's time for the truth. By noon, the arrest began. Her father's hospital room filled with federal agents, reading him his rights as he lay connected to machines that kept him breathing. His hired killers were found within hours. 2 ex-military contractors who'd been on the family payroll for years. The media circus that followed was brutal. News vans lined the estate's gates. Reporters shouted questions about murder, cover-ups, and family secrets. The Whitmore name, once synonymous with success and philanthropy, became a symbol of corruption and violence. But Claudia didn't hide. She stood before the cameras and told the truth. My son Marcus was murdered because he fell in love with a woman my family deemed unworthy, she said, her voice strong despite the pain. He was killed because he chose love over money, family over reputation. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure his sacrifice meant something. The trial was swift. Jimmy's video evidence was overwhelming. The recording of Marcus's final call provided motive. Her father's own confession, recorded by the hospital security system, sealed his fate. He died in prison 3 weeks later, his heart finally giving out under the weight of his crimes. But the real healing began when Claudia knelt in her garden beside James, showing him how to plant flowers. These are for your daddy, she said softly, so he can watch them grow from heaven. James looked up with Marcus's eyes. Will you tell me stories about him? Every day, Claudia promised. Every single day. Laura watched from the porch, still wary but willing to try. The DNA test had proven what everyone already knew. James was a Whitmore. But more importantly, he was loved. I'm sorry, Claudia said that evening as they sat together in the kitchen, for everything my family put you through, for the lies, the accusations, the years you spent alone. I'm sorry too, Laura replied, for keeping James from you, for letting fear and anger make decisions that hurt an innocent child. We can't change the past, Claudia said, but we can choose differently going forward. She pulled out a legal document. I'm establishing a foundation in Marcus's name for single mothers who've been falsely accused, for families torn apart by prejudice and power. And I want you to run it, Claudia continued. If you're willing. Laura's eyes filled with tears. I'm willing. 6 months later, the Marcus Whitmore Foundation occupied the entire 3rd floor of downtown Atlanta's newest office building. Laura sat at the head of the conference table, reviewing cases of women who needed legal help, job training, or just someone to believe their story. Mama, look! James burst through the office doors, holding a drawing of stick figures standing in front of a big house. I drew our family. Laura studied the picture. There was James in the middle, herself on one side, and Claudia on the other. But in the sky above them, a figure with wings watched over them all. That's Daddy, James explained. Grandma Claudia says he's an angel now. He is, Laura agreed, kissing the top of his head. He's watching over all of us. The foundation had helped over 200 families in its first year. Women who'd been fired for false accusations found new jobs. Children who'd been separated from parents during legal battles were reunited. The Whitmore name, once associated with cruelty, was slowly being redeemed. Every evening, Claudia came to the foundation to have dinner with Laura and James. They'd eat takeout in the conference room, while James colored and chattered about his day at preschool. "I hired a new caseworker today," Laura said, reviewing files. "She's 23, just out of college. Reminds me of myself when I first started working for your family. The difference is, this time she'll be treated with respect," Claudia replied. "Things are changing," Laura agreed. "Slowly, but they're changing." James looked up from his coloring. "Grandma Claudia, will you read me a story about Daddy tonight?" "Of course, sweetheart." Claudia had written dozens of stories about Marcus for James. Tales of his kindness, his courage, his love for his son. Stories that painted him as the hero he'd always been. Later that night, as Claudia tucked James in a bed in the apartment above the foundation, he asked the question that broke her heart every time. "Do you think Daddy would be proud of us?" Claudia looked at this beautiful little boy who carried her son's face and gentle spirit. "I think he'd be very proud. You're kind, smart, and brave, just like he was. And he'd like that you and Mama are friends now." "He'd love it," Claudia said, meaning every word. As she turned off the lights, Claudia whispered a prayer to the son she'd lost and found again through his child. Marcus had died protecting his family, but in the end, love had won. Justice had prevailed. And a little boy would grow up knowing his father had been a hero. What life lessons did this story teach you? Comment below and watch our next incredible true story about family secrets that changed everything. Because sometimes the most powerful truth is that love really can conquer all, even death itself.